All right. I think we're all set. And yes, there we go. Let me see here. John Ashley Smith, how you doing? Zingbo, hello from Edinburgh, Scotland, where daylight savings time has ended, but I'm still struggling to get my October project finished in time to complete it this month. I woke up this morning and I was like, wait, was it daylight savings time? But for us in the US, it's next week because whatever, I don't know. And now it sounds like sometime eventually we may decide to get rid of daylight savings time or whatever the deal is going to be, and then we won't be switching back and forth, and that'll be confusing as well. So either way, but I hope you folks are all doing well. Completely forgot it was October. Well, you know, that'll happen. VJ Morph, how you doing? Morning from an unusually warm and sunny Rochester, New York. I don't know what the temperature is supposed to be like today. High in the high 50s. It is supposed to get warmer over the course of the week. Almost back into, if the weather app that I use is to be believed, it should be priming weather by like midweek, like highs in the high 60s and stuff like that, which is crazy since it'll be November. Anyway, let's see here. Tapped in, how you doing? Morning from Quebec. Hello from Pittsburgh to all my fellow minions. Good morning from a chilly basement in the Mitten, getting ready to paint some Chaos Marines. Nice. Good morning from a chilly Washington, D.C. I've had a difficult time focusing on any one project, got too many on the go. Feeling like a dog in a hubcap factory. Yeah, I do have that same issue, kind of. Bulgari, how you doing? Good morning. Good afternoon from Penistone. Pennystone is how it's pronounced, South Yorkshire. Trying to get Necron, Kazrakin, and Custodes kill teams painted up at the same time as 2 Underworlds warbands. You just need like 5 brushes. Just kind of hold them in your hands like Wolverine, and then you can just paint that way. I think that will work. No, it won't. Good morning from Lexington, Kentucky. Telford, UK. Getting chilly there. Yeah, I sort of. I mean, it was sort of chilly this morning, and I just put on a hat. Plus it's Halloween soon, and it's got skulls on it, so that's pretty cool. It's also the hat that I usually wear when I'm Twitch streaming, because then in the little up here, the little picture of me in black and white while I'm painting, when I'm like head down painting like this, and you get to see something other than just the top of my head, so that's fun. I'm commissioning my wife to make me a reversed version of this, where the skulls are in like an ivory, and the part that's white right now is in black. So, good morning from a foggy Markham, building up some Imperial Guardsmen. Nice. John, happy Sunday. Good morning from Wilmington, NC. Just noticed that my closed captioning is on for some reason on my other window. I'm not sure why. Hello from an undisclosed location. Great to meet you at Dragonfall. Well, absolutely. Yeah, Dragonfall was a good time. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm looking forward already to next year. I actually want to run some, not tournaments obviously, but some demos and stuff. I think next year would be kind of fun. I did get to play a game of Warcry against Zambies, and I got to teach Sam how to play Grimdark Future Firefight. So we had some fun with that as well. Yeah, this is the time the stream starts an hour early for me. Yeah. Greetings from Germany. Greetings from a damp central Oklahoma. Daylight savings time is already flipped here at the beginning of the month, so I get this whole month of not knowing if I get times right with streams. Yeah, that's also fun too. Greetings from Poland. I'm painting Killjoy from Malifaux. That's pretty cool. Just drank 2 glasses of prune juice. Wish me luck. Well, yeah. Let's see here. Good morning from Richmond, Virginia. Feeling burnt out. Perhaps I need to make more time for gaming. Yeah, sometimes I have found that when the hobby portion, building, painting, etc., starts to kind of drag on you, sometimes then spending more time gaming can kind of help recharge that. Like, I felt pretty well recharged coming back from Dragonfall last weekend, but then this week it's just been, well, I had a bunch of stuff I had to get done for the video on Friday. And if you're one of the few people who watched it, I appreciate that. But there was a lot of different projects that had to kind of happen so that I could make that video. And I just feel like I'm kind of split all over the place. Like yesterday, my plan was to work on a whole bunch of that terrain that was in that video. There was towards the end there was me working on one of those Rampart City ruins and showing how I kind of like to do the kind of gradients of the different colors for, like, you know, concrete and stuff like that. But instead I worked on a Rivenstone skeleton guy. Just wasn't, yeah, I don't know. Hi from sunny Somerset. Hello from Knutsford, UK, or Knutsford. I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that properly. Good morning from Michigan. Hello from Kent. Let's see here. Good morning from All Seasons at Once, Tennessee. We get that here from time to time as well. Good afternoon from sunny Germany, working on my Rain and Hell warband. Nice. Couldn't convince other players to join me in a campaign, unfortunately. Great game, though. Well, I appreciate that. If you do, there is an expansion that you can get on the same, you know, if you can just go to snarlingbadger.com and there's a link and all that kind of stuff. And there's an expansion you can get that allows you to play it solo or co-op. So if you can't find anybody to play with, there's a 6-part kind of storyline campaign that you can play by yourself, which is also fun. And it's pay what you want. So, you know, let's see here. Good afternoon from sunny Germany. I just read that. Sorry. Cleveland, Augusta, Georgia. Good evening from over in Chiba, Japan. No Fez? No, I just put this on. You know, this is my Halloween costume. I'm streaming tomorrow, which is Halloween. I've got to figure out what to do for that. I'm not going to, like, wear a costume because you only really be able to see, like, this much of me anyway. So, and if I wear, like, a big funny hat, it's just going to bang against the camera every time I lean forward. So that's not going to work. Let's see here. Clocks went back last night, so your stream is on early today. Yeah. Oh, everything moved. Let me see here. Mexico City, near St. Louis, warm, nice. Jonesboro, Illinois. Really wanting Leagues of Votann Kill Team rules. Do they even want me to pre-order? How does GW make me want their admittedly overpriced dice? See, that I don't have anymore. I used to be, like, kind of a fan of some of their dice, and I do own a few sets of the older dice. Like, back in the day, like, they made those Nurgle dice, which were, like, hollow and had, like, the weird rubbery bumps and stuff like that. Those are great. I still love those dice. But honestly, nowadays, when they just sell the dice, you know, like in a blister pack instead of putting them in that nice little plastic thing, and it's just like, hey, let's just put the logo on, like, the one of the sides or whatever. Yeah, and also they're way more expensive than they used to be, like way more expensive. Now that has fixed me, so I don't have to worry about that GW dice. I don't want to say addiction, but like longing. There would be times where I'd be like, oh, I don't know, and sometimes I would you know, cave and buy the dice, and many times I wouldn't, thankfully. And now there's no chance because I'm not paying, I don't know, $35 for a bunch of dice. That just whatever, it's fine. So that's good. You know, I got that going for me, which is nice. Morning from chilly, or sunny and slightly chilly, Kingston, Ohio. For some reason, I thought that the Leagues of Votann stuff was coming out yesterday. I don't know why I thought that, but it turns out instead it was going on pre-order yesterday, right? So I think next week is when that stuff actually comes out. I want to go out and buy some of the regular base guys. I forget what they're called, Hearthkin or whatever. 10 dudes for $55 though is a little, I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably buy it because I want those guys. Like, that's the thing. I'm not going to order anything else from the Leagues of Votann because I just don't need any of it. I mean, I don't need any of these things, obviously, but I do definitely want the regular base Hearthkin guys and ladies and whatnot for like other games, for, you know, Space Station Zero, for Space Weirdos, for Planet 28. You know, I could use them for Stargrave, all kinds of stuff. So that I want, but I don't. Yeah, the rest of the stuff, I don't know. Diablo 2 has stolen all of my painting focus. That'll happen too, yeah. Hello from California. Happy Sunday, Jim Crimmins. Good afternoon from London. Hope you've had a good week. It's okay. I've been sick. I've got like I went into urgent care on Tuesday because I was having some sort of like when I would inhale, I would get a lot of tightness and stuff like up here. And the doctor says it's a, I want to say a lung virus. He said virus, but I don't think he said it was a lung virus. But he did say it was like a respiratory virus. And because he listened to me all over the place with the stethoscope thing and all that jazz. And so now I have an inhaler to use for a while, because the thing is that he's like, yeah, you got some fluid in your lungs and this and that. We don't want it to turn into pneumonia. So, you know, I'm a bit better, but I've still got this weird dry cough and stuff like that. So I don't know, keeping an eye on it, but it's been a little troublesome. Otherwise, fine. Let's see. Good morning from Newfoundland. How you doing? Working on my Space Station Zero crew and trying red as a main color for the first time. Nice. That's kind of cool. Greetings from Italy. How you doing? Good morning from a cemetery in North Carolina. I'm working. Well, that's, I mean, you know, you could just hang on a cemetery. I got no problems with that. Good morning from Syracuse, New York, working on painting a 3D printed Star Wars AT-RT for the Carnage Con gaming convention in Vermont next weekend. Oh, that's pretty cool. Hello from Klausenberg, Romania. Howdy. So one upside of getting evicted soon is the wife and I are looking at houses to buy. We found one with a Harry Potter room under the stairs, so I may have my own one soon. Well, I mean, Harry Potter room under the stairs for airbrushing and stuff like that. Cool. Getting evicted, that sucks. Are they like going to sell the house or something like that and they want people out? Or years and years ago, I lived with two roommates and we lived at a place for 3 years. And then 1 year, you know, the lease was up or whatever, and we were going to, you know, live there again. And they're like, yeah, no, you guys got to get out because we're going to sell it. And I'm like, you could sell it with us on it. And they're like, nah. So that house has since burned down. I have an alibi in that I did not know it burned down until several months later. But yeah. Let's see here. Castleberry, Florida, painting Warcry terrain with Green Stuff World dipping inks. Yeah, I don't have any of those. I did pick up at Dragonfall last week. I picked up some of the Scale 75 instant colors. I think that's what they're called. It's basically Scale 75's kind of attempt at contrast style, speed paint style, you know, that kind of whatnot. There was a vendor there called Elric Hobbies, which is, if you've been to Adepticon, they're always there at Adepticon. They're a great company. They make a lot of resin stuff too, like resin bases and little accoutrement for your terrain and all kinds of jazz like that, and a bunch of other stuff as well. They had a huge amount of Parabellum Wargames stuff, like Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings, and First Blood, and all that kind of jazz. I bought a t-shirt for 100 Kingdoms. Anyway, they also had some of the Scale 75 stuff, but they sell it, Scale 75 always sells it in these weird boxes where you get like 8 colors. Like there was one that was like, here's bunch of instant colors. They're all red variations. And here's one that's like browns and what, and I've never understood why they sell it that way, but they do. But they did have one pack of the instant colors that I thought seemed sort of smart, and it was all shadow colors, they called it. So it was not just all one, like, oh, here's a bunch of greens. It was like, here's a shade, like a shade of blue, green, red, brown, blah, blah. So I was like, that's something I will try. Now, even the guy who was working the register there was like, yeah, these aren't contrast colors. They don't actually do the contrast color thing. That's what they were going for. It doesn't seem to work. This is what he told me. He said they're basically glazes. And I'm like, that's fine by me. I want to try them out. So yeah, that's interesting. The Scale 75 stuff. I don't know. But like I said, I don't know of a single store around me that carries it. So that's why I've never really had too much access to it. Good morning from a damp and gloomy Savannah, Georgia. I'm like, Sanova. No, that's not right. Your Friday video was good. Great for new airbrushes. I mean, I hope so. That was the plan. But thank you. Good morning from Quebec City. Good morning from Townsville. How you doing? I'm feeling the need to roll some dice. Haven't done any gaming in like 3 weeks. Withdrawal symptoms are getting more pronounced. Sure, I can understand that. As if anyone would miss a Tabletop Minions weekly video. Oh, you know, it happens. Whoops, scrolled again. Wow, I'm way behind. All right. I like the Friday video. I appreciate that. Good morning from Halifax. It just didn't get as many views. Like any given Friday morning when I wake up, there's a thing that's been going on for a year or two or so in the YouTube Studio app. It's a relatively newish feature where they will show you, hey, including this video, your last 10 videos, here's the ranking views-wise of where your video is at this time in comparison. So it's like, here's the last 10 videos, and you are 2 hours in since launch, or 6 hours in since launch, or 22 hours in since launch. And at this point, all these other videos as well had these amount of views, and this is how many this has, and then it gives it a ranking, and it tells you are, if it's ahead of all the rest of the videos you've done in the last 10 videos, then you are 1 out of 10. And there's little confetti or some crap like that that pops up when you see that, which is fun. I mean, literally. Well, maybe not in the app, but on the website there is. Or else it'll say, oh, you got 3 out of 10. You know, so there's like 2 other videos that at this point in time in their life were ahead in views of the last 10 videos. This video was 10 out of 10, which many times when you're like, hey, 10 out of 10 would buy again, great, that's good. But in this situation, 10 out of 10 is bad. That means that this is currently in 10th place of the last 10 videos for views at this time. And so when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, 10 out of 10, great. That's a good start to the morning. Not really. Good morning from Halifax. We had our local con this weekend, and yesterday I got to see Ash from Guerrilla Miniature Games. Lots of fun. Well, that's cool. When was the last time I talked to him in person? It might be, I think last time I talked to him in person was probably at Adepticon pre-pandemic. 2018, maybe? It's been quite some time. I know Vince talked with him when they were all over in the UK for the big Horus Heresy shindig and all that stuff. I think earlier part of this year. Was that when that was? Yeah, I think so. Sometimes you just have to go where the mood takes you. Sometimes you just have to realize the mood is taking you elsewhere. Sure. Hello from France. Down with the bug and trying to focus on doing something productive. Well, that's, you know, but still rest up, though. It's always important. How has Space Station Zero been doing week over week compared to Rain in Hell? The first week it was just slightly lower. Like each day it'd be like just under, you know, like 20 copies less, stuff like that. But at this point we've pulled ahead, or well, you know, both of the games are Wii. So but Space Station Zero has definitely pulled ahead by a good deal. So we're doing good there. So we're real happy. We should, I don't know. It took 4 months for us to get the Adamantine badge, which is the top like sales badge you can get in the Wargame Vault ecosystem. At this point, we are just over 2 months since launch because the game launched on the 26th or 8th. 26th of August, and today is the 30th of October. So we're, yeah, basically 2 months and 4 days. and we are getting real close to that badge. Now, obviously sales have slowed down because that's the way that these things work, is you get this initial like huge, and then it kind of goes out. It's what they call the long tail. But yeah, we're getting close, so that's cool. We just want to hit the adamantine badge quicker on this game than the last game, just as personal. But either way, we're real happy with how things are going, so that's good. Hello from Lithuania, going for Hunter's Warband for more time. That's pretty cool. Hello from Germany. Good morning, but from a cold but still sunny Orange County, California. Wow. Friend is having trouble with the base coat that is too smooth. Other layers are not binding. Like the surface is too smooth? Yeah, there's certain types of paints that like don't work well as primers sometimes, or even as base coats, which you have to paint over the top of them. I've seen lots of rattle cans that you like go, hey, this is nice and cheap, and I'll use this as a nice base coat, or even as a primer. But if it's like a gloss, the surface will be real hydrophobic, and then any other kind of paint you try to put over it will just bead up on it, and you kind of don't want that. One thing to try is, if you can, try to put some maybe matte varnish over the top of it, and then start working on top of that once it's dry, you know? Anyone catch that Guerrilla Miniatures video on Ash's new game with Death Ray Design, Steel Rift? It looks wicked. Yeah, I got to play it. Vince and I actually got to play it at Nova Open back in September, early September. And I have a bunch of it here at my house that I brought back with me from DC. And so I want to, that's another thing I kind of want to try to do some focus on. I want to try to build some of the mechs that I've got. They're all 3D printed, but they're not like, oh, here's a mech and it's 3D printed. It's like arms, and there's a lot of variation and modularity, which is very cool unless you don't know what you're doing. And then I don't want to say analysis paralysis, but a little bit. So I got to figure out what kind of weapon systems and all that kind of stuff and build me some mechs. But I've got the book, I've got some mechs. I even have some of the MDF terrain, although I am thinking about going on to Etsy and buying some 6mm 3D printed terrain. I've seen some really neat stuff on there. I even ordered a mat that should work well for it. So yeah, I'm definitely heading in that direction, and I enjoyed the game quite a bit. I also loved the fact that it was a mech game, but the entire book was 36 pages long. Like and like 2 of those pages are the front and back cover, and I think there's at least a couple of pages of lore. So it's really not that much at all, which I like a lot. Hello from morning from sunny Milwaukee. Yeah, when I woke up, it was real grungy, but now it's gotten sunny. But how you doing, Jesse? Hello from Forest Park. Hello from London. Thanks for the White Scar spray review. Very useful. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, the stuff's not bad. Honestly, for like white rattle can is so, I was going to say hit or miss, but it's mostly miss usually. And this stuff is not bad. Again, I would prefer to use an airbrush, but if you don't have an airbrush, or you have a bunch of terrain you need to paint white for some weird reason. I mean, there's probably some reasons. Like you might want to prime it white and then use your airbrush to spray some contrast over the top of it, or it's hard to say. But yeah, that stuff's not bad. It's not bad. My difficulty focusing doubled when I got a 3D printer. That is also a concern. I can understand that. I got the Gene Stealer Cult and the Orc dice back in the day. They were nice, but I wouldn't pay the new prices. Yeah. Like I remember buying my Nurgle dice. I swear to God, they were like 17 or 18 bucks for that set. And they are, I just think they're the coolest dice. Like they're the most interesting dice that I've seen, like normal 6-siders. Although now there's that company that sells dice that has liquid on the inside with a bunch of glitter in it, which is not Nurgly. It's cool from a technological standpoint. There's a part of me that's like wants to take a pliers to it and bust it open, but then that's not helpful. But I didn't buy any of those dice. I was thinking about it at Gen Con. I saw them at Gen Con. I'm like, but I didn't buy any of those dice. There's also now like LED weird ones too, but I don't need to charge my dice with Bluetooth or whatever. I don't know. Like these dice are like, they have LEDs in them, and there's an app where you roll them and it will actually tell you what the numbers are. And I'm like, yeah, but I can look at them too. And you can make them flash and do stuff and whatever and this and that. Like one of the cool things you can kind of do with it is if you set, like, let's say you've got a bunch of these LED 6-siders, you could say, I need a 4-up, and then it will throw them. And then allegedly they'll know whether they're 4-up or not, let's say, as an example. And then they'll light up green, and all the ones that aren't 4-up would light up like red. So it's easier even yet for you to figure out which ones made it and which ones didn't. It seems like a lot of work though, and you have to charge them wirelessly because they like sit on a little thing, and yeah, they're expensive and crazy. But people love expensive dice these days. I generally don't, but people do. Got my Blitz Bowl a day early, so I'm putting them together while I listen. Nice. Ever play Blitz Bowl? I have played Blitz Bowl. Yeah, I played actually with VJ Morph at Tabletop Minions Expo here in Wisconsin back in 2019, I believe was the last time I played. Let's see here. Hello from dreary St. Louis. Perfect spooky time weather. I remember when I was a kid, there would be times that you would go trick-or-treating on Halloween and it would be snowing. But I don't think it's going to be snowing tomorrow, which is fine. Because you know what the thing is when you're a little kid and you have to wear like a winter coat over your costume, you don't want that. Nobody wants, so I get it. Morning from Elkhart. Glad I caught the stream while I'm trying to lay out a Christmas diorama, including several companies' models. Hopefully it gets done in time. Nice. Trying to finish the Sentinels from Marvel Crisis Protocol. Simple paint scheme, but fun. Cool. Just watched Casey's Orc Stampa Rescue. As much as I enjoy scratch building, that video gives me the fear and anxiety. I haven't seen that one yet. I saw him working on I forget the big orc guy's name. He's got the giant honking claw and stuff like that. It came out a couple years back. I saw the thumbnail for that. I haven't watched it. If you like the Votan but don't like the price, check out Wargames Atlantic. Einerjar. I've seen those guys. There's a bunch of stuff I own from Wargames Atlantic. Most recently, I bought some of their like jumpsuit folks. They're like cannon fodder, are they maybe called? There's like a set of men and a set of women, and I bought those, and I've bought a bunch of stuff from them actually. Their lizard men are awesome. I think I've got some goblins maybe from them. I don't remember. Anyway, I've got a bunch of their stuff. Those guys, I just was like, nah, it just didn't strike me. Like I said, the only guys for Votan that strike me are the main base guys, like again, like whatever they're called, the Hearthkin or whatever. As soon as you start getting into the other dwarves, like with the bigger armor and all that kind of stuff, and they just start putting runes and stuff all over them, I'm all of a sudden kind of like, nah, it just doesn't, I don't know. Viral URI. Upper respiratory infection? Is a virus an infection? Or are those the same thing? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Let's see here. Hope you're on the mend. We need you in good health. I mean, I'm doing okay, but it's slow. When you get old, it takes longer to get over stuff, I think. I don't know. Topic is very relevant to me today. I'm having difficult time focusing on one project at a time. Between scenery, between different games and miniatures, it's hard to finish anything. Yeah. I wonder if it's like a good idea to try to, like, there's a part of me that's like, I should just make a list and just go down that list. But there's also times when I'm like, this is not inspiring me, but the next thing that's 6 things down the list is, and I think that's part of the problem. I don't know. I knew this would start an hour early, but I became unfocused. Hello, one and all. Well, see there, that'll happen, yeah. I had pleurisy a couple years ago. That was nasty. Clearly you need a course of leeches. I mean, leeches are bad. I don't want any leeches. I don't know what pleurisy is, but it sounds bad as well. So I don't want leeches or pleurisy. But I hope that I hope you got better. I'm assuming you did. Good morning from Texas. I used to get walking pneumonia every winter, but oddly not the last 4 or 5 years because I am living healthier. 8 because I'm living any healthier. I get you. Yeah, when I was a little kid, I got strep throat like twice a winter. It was not good. I had strep throat a lot. I spent so much time trying to come up with a painting scheme for the New Age of Darkness box set. Been a great journey. Just hard to stick to one. I did a video a while back about like using software, like, most people don't have access to Photoshop because it's stupid expensive. But in that video, there are other options and things like that, where you can take a picture like with your phone of a built model, convert it to black and white, and then in very many times this free web-based software, I think Pixlr, Pixlr, was the one I suggested in that video. Then you can go in and be like, well, what if his pants were blue? What if his pants were yellow? Or like that kind of thing. And I've had good luck with trying to like figure out what colors to use in certain situations. Very frequently, I just go by the seat of my pants and I'm just like, well, let's see if this works. And then, But especially if you're doing an army where they're all supposed to kind of look the same, you want to kind of get that nailed down beforehand. So it's potentially something that would work. That sounds like smoke damaged lungs from house burning. That place burned down like a decade ago, at least. Like we lived in there in the mid 90s, 95 to 98. And then probably about 2012, I think maybe is when it burned down. Maybe it was 2015. It was quite some time ago though. Owner of the house wants to sell. We've been here for 5 years. It's pretty much the only house Declan's ever known, but trying to find a silver lining. Yeah. Corn burnt the house down. Adam is innocent. I mean, probably. I still have mechs and Battletech on the brain. It's debilitating. I mean, like if you actually have a mech like touching your brain, they should probably try to get that out because it could, I don't know, poke a hole in your brain bag. There's like a thing that goes around your brain, like a membrane. Ooh, it's a brain membrane. Anyway, you don't want like a urban mech or a mad cat or anything like that poking into that part of your brain. That's just science. Sorry to hear you've been unwell. Glad you're on the mend. Try to take it easy if you can. Yeah, I've been doing that to some degree. A little, not very much. Yeah, I was actually, when I got back from Dragonfall, like a couple days later, like maybe Monday or Tuesday, I think it was maybe Monday, I did not run, but I took the box of terrain that I had brought to play Grimdark Future Firefight with Sam and whatnot. I took that back upstairs to my studio, which has very steep stairs. It's on the second floor, and it has a lot of people when I've brought them to the studio, they've been like, huh, like that. These are very steep stairs. So I go up the stairs with this box, which is not particularly heavy, and I get up to the top, and I'm just like, whew. And then that was when I was like, I should probably go to the urgent care maybe tomorrow or whatever. But yeah, I was really like winded, which normally that doesn't wind me. And yeah, so, but like I said, it seems to be okay. But like I said, it's going to take some time. Slapping Sarah from Sepia over Leadbelcher primed Octarius terrain in Chelmsford. Nice. Waiting for the new Vallejo version of Contrast Paints to be released. Is Vallejo the Dipping Inks? No. Dipping Inks is Green Stuff World. I forget what the Vallejo stuff is called. Somebody sent me like several videos about it, just randomly, like through Facebook. They're just like, here's 2 videos about it. And didn't even say like, I don't think they even said anything about it. And I was like, I don't know where. That's the thing. Like, I know places locally that I can buy like model color and game color, like at my local Hobbytown, USA. But they've never carried anything really beyond that as outside of Vallejo. They carry a pretty good line of both of those 2 things, but they don't generally carry the air line for either of those, whether it's model color or game color. And yeah, that's the only place I can find Vallejo around here. Whoops. Let me see. Skaven dice always roll low. Well, I can see that. Wait, Guerrilla Miniatures has their own game? I mean, he's written a bunch of games. He worked with, not Vallejo, he worked with Osprey, and he did a game called Last Fall. No. Not Last Fall. Last something. It was a zombie game. I forget what it was called, but it definitely had the word last in it now. But yeah, so he did a zombie game with them, and he also did a game with them called, and he might have done another one, but these are the only 2 that I know, is the zombie game that with the name that I can't remember anymore. And Gamma Wolves, which was also a mech game, but it didn't really have a line of mechs available for you. And it was kind of an odd scale, but it, I know he did that. And again, it was, and it was through Osprey, so it was really good layout and fancy art and all that kind of stuff. And then he started working with Death Ray Designs, which is the company that makes tons of MDF terrain and all kinds of other great stuff. So they're publishing it. He's written it. And then they designed the little buildings for it. And I think they must have designed probably the mechs and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, if you go to Death Ray Designs, you can find out more about the game. I like it a lot. Like I said, it's simpler than most of their mech games. It has some kind of interesting things. Like, one thing that I like a lot about it is that when you shoot at somebody, you don't roll to hit. You just hit. They are a giant walking side of a barn, right? Like they're a giant honking mech. You're a giant honking mech. You shouldn't miss. You have cool sci-fi laser guided control systems, and that thing's basically a building. You should be able to hit it. I mean, unless it's behind another building or something like that. That's a different story. But so you don't ever roll to hit. When you shoot somebody, the defender rolls to see like what happens as far as like, are they able to deflect it to some degree and stuff like that. And it's more of a defense roll. But just the fact you just hit, there's no reason to be like, oh, I missed. How did you miss? You know what I mean? Like that's anyway. And I think that's smart. But there's a bunch of other cool stuff in that game. And I like I said, Austin from Death Ray Designs ran a demo for me and Vince at Nova, and we both enjoyed it. That starter set for Steel Rifts is a must-buy for me, hoping local FLGS carries it. I don't know if they're trying to get into distribution. You might want to reach out to them and say, hey, are you going to... Because, your local game store buys the majority of their stuff generally through a distributor. So, but I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if they're just doing everything direct or not. You tried using the Army Painter airbrush paints with a brush. Do they act like a glaze? I do not think they would act like a glaze because they're not transparent, but I have not yet tried using them with a brush. And I probably ought to. But I don't know if I said this, no, I think it was actually on Twitch yesterday. Someone asked kind of the same, not yesterday, sorry, Friday. Someone asked kind of the same question. And I was like, I haven't tried using them with a brush, and the reason is because they're always in my airbrush room, and like my airbrush room is on the other side of the basement from where I paint with a brush. So I should probably do that. There's actually a couple of colors. There's a metallic color in there that I really want to try with a brush to see how it looks. It's called like rough iron or something like that, and it's like a grungy... It's called rough iron, but I feel like it's got a touch of like a brassiness to it. But it's dirty looking. I don't know. It's pretty cool looking stuff. So yeah. That airbrushing Sharpies thing I always thought was a total leg pull, but hey, if it works, it's a win. When I was a kid, I had a friend who, his parents were very well to do, and they had a charge account at a local art supply store. So my friend would go in there and buy stuff all the time, and it was okay with his parents, and he would buy... And he wanted to get into drafting. Middle school and high school, he was very much into drafting. And this is slightly before CAD, like computer-aided design and stuff like that. So he was like, he had all kinds of expensive pens and this and that and all the other jazz like that. But he also bought a kit of these expensive markers that you would then stick in the top of like a thing that kind of looked like an airbrush, and you attached it to a can of canned air or whatever, and then you could spray it, and it was sort of like an airbrush, and it made a mess more often than not. And it was expensive because it was like canned air, these expensive markers that you would destroy by spraying stuff through them, but that's what they were for. Yeah, it's cool to see that kind of stuff kind of go on. Hello from Ontario. Those new tools showing you the performance ranks of the new videos on YouTube are quite cool. Yeah. Hello from France. Long-time watcher. Love your videos. Well, thanks. Let's see here. For folks who have problems with regular airbrushing, then the Sharpie airbrush trick will definitely help. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Does GW have a problem with mold release? Do I have to soap wash prime? I would if you were getting anything from Forge World, but for the regular plastics, I've never had that issue. So, but if it's a resin, and every once in a great while, GW's does produce something in resin. Like Eisenhorn was a resin model. There've been a couple other like low print runs that they've done in resin in the normal GW line. I would also wash those. Forge World, I would definitely want to wash those. Any company that makes stuff in resin, you want to wash it before you prime it, but it's for normal plastics, I've never had that issue. Hello from Calgary. Hello from Chile, New Mexico. Hello from Minneapolis. Glad to hear the game is doing well. Do you have a recommendation on a happy medium on the baddie models for your new game? 6 seems too few and 30 plus seems too many to paint. I mean, it's generally like about 6 robots and 6 mutants per crew. So if you're playing a solo game, that should be about all you generally need. I mean, here and there's some sort of special things, but you can kind of, improvise with that. If you're playing co-op and there's like two crews, then you would generally need probably 12 robots, up to 12 robots and up to 12 mutants. Now, you would generally never use all of those models, bad guys, on one board, but you want to be able to have the access to it. Do you think Amazon is destroying hobby shops? I mean, no, but yeah, I mean, the thing I think that generally has the thing that destroys hobby shops is very frequently the owners of the hobby shops. Like, they're just, and this is not just hobby shops, this is retail in general. Small company retail is just like, hey, I opened my doors, so just start throwing money at me. And if you are a hobby shop, if you're a fishing shop, which is another type of hobby, obviously, but you see what I'm saying, like, even if you're like a company, like you're a shop that fixes people's mufflers and stuff like that, if you don't market, if you don't give people a reason, now, like, service stuff, like Amazon can't fix my muffler, right? So that's a different story to some degree. But if there's multiple muffler shops in town, if you want to set yourself above, you've got certain things you have to do. If you're a hobby shop, a fishing shop, whatever, a photography, a camera store, you have to put something out there that makes your service better, in gaming. You can't play games at Amazon. So if you are a store owner and you want people to, it helps to get people into the store. It helps to run escalation leagues. It helps to have events. It helps to do that stuff. And it takes work. So yeah. Now, that being said, you can be busting your butt and making all kinds of events and doing all kinds of things. And there will still be people that will come to your events that never buy anything from you, and they only ever buy their stuff online. And those people are bad in general. Like, I will go to a shop and play with a friend, and I will buy something before I leave because I've been there for a couple hours and I feel like I should do that. Now, some shops, they don't do it around here, but I've heard of shops that are like, they charge you for a table. Well, then in that situation, okay, I'll pay the table fee, and then I'm not going to buy something on the way out because I paid the table fee. Only unless I see something that's really awesome that I need or whatever, need. But if it's free tables and I come in there to play, I'm going to buy something. Maybe it's going to be a GW handle. Lord knows I have tons of those. Or it's going to be some sort of paint or something. It might just be cheap, it might be like $10 or whatever, but still, that's the way it works. But there are people that go to stores and just play there constantly, but never buy anything from the store because they're like, well, I can get it, 10% cheaper online. You're like, yeah, but if you don't buy stuff from the store, and I've made a video about this in the past, this store will go away, and now you'll have to play out in the parking lot, and or people will have to come over to your house and then see how you live. You don't want that. So, yeah, I don't online. Here's the deal too: is a lot of local shops also sell stuff online. So, if you're smart, you're doing that too. Stuff that doesn't move in your store very quickly, you put that stuff on eBay, you put that stuff on your own Shopify store, whatever, and then someone someplace will buy it because they'll be like, oh, I've been looking for that and it's out of stock everywhere, and you're like, well, I've been sitting on it for 2 years and nobody wanted it, and so boom, there you go. So Amazon's screwing up a lot of things in this planet, but I don't know that we can put all of that onto them for when a hobby shop closes, you know, for a gaming store closes. Let's see here. Lots of YouTube videos on making liquid center dice if you're curious. I do not want to make those. That sounds bad. The ones that I saw were really cool, like I said, at Gen Con, but I think that making them myself would be, ooh. LED dice they have been flogging on Facebook seem a bit naff. I don't know what naff means. I've heard the word. I think it's bad. I'm pretty sure it's bad, but yes, I get that. It was just about freezing here last night. Frost on the windshield. Still at 10 to 7 when I had to drive to my daughter to work. Winter is coming. Not looking forward to it. Yeah, it's every year, you know. Well, I mean, maybe less and less every year, but yeah. The app is so if you play remotely, then a DM might be able to see your roll. I could see that, sure. I remember when big foam dice were the height of strange dice. I do have some really big six-siders that are made out of, like, foam. Like, they're huge, yeah. Blitzbowl at TMX was a blast playing with Adam and teaching others, including FLB, you know, RIP. Morning from Appleton. You have to trick or treat as someone with a coat. I mean, now well, yeah, it's not a bad idea. Gazgul Thraka, yeah, I think that's who it was. Wow, I'm way behind. Maybe raining or it may be really hot. I know how many girls will dress a certain way no matter what. My brother-in-law bought some clear dice and discovered they were next to impossible to read from a table. Yeah, oh, I don't like dice that I can't read. That's, yeah. That's the first, for me, the first most important thing is, can I easily read these dice? I don't care what kind of material they're made out of. That's, I think, frankly, one of the reasons I didn't buy the clear dice with the goop inside and the glitter is because they were a little hard to read. And I'm like, no, readability is job one for dice, in my opinion. Good morning from Iowa. How you doing? John Scott also mentioned wearing snow clothes on Halloween. Never had that problem here in South Carolina. Well, I would suppose not. I suppose, yeah. But us Northerners. Thinking of orcs, anyone play Shoot His Blood and Teeth yet? I watched a guy that I know play it on Twitch for a while. It looked kind of cool, but I have not picked it up or anything. I'm not a... What do they call those? Gun hell? Is that what they call it? No. It's one of those games where you're just like, you're spending most of your time dodging shots versus actually shooting. I mean, you're shooting, but you have to really pay mostly attention to not getting hit. And I'm not good at those types of games, so. Hearthskin Warriors may be a good bet for Kill Team. I hope there are a lot of options for them. My shop offers a hefty discount on GW, so that is tempting. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming they'll come out with something. If I had to guess, they might come out with the stuff in either a White Dwarf or, more likely, upcoming Tome of Champions. No, that's not right. No. Kill Team Annual. Tome of Champions is Warcry. Yeah. Greetings from NYC. How you doing? Still pining for those Lizardmen and the Cannon Fodder and the Grognards. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool models from Wargame Atlantic. I bought a dice game at the grocery store that is called Tensai. It's 4 sets of D6, 40 dice for $7. Totally worth. Yeah, no, totally. I can understand that. Let's see here. I have a really hard time focusing on any one project, though. I should probably finish my Necrons from their 3rd edition release. I think that, and this is maybe something that, I don't want to say it's a downside, but when you are building a single army, like a big honkin' 2,000-point army, it is then definitely, how am I trying to say this? It is definitely then, well, I have to get this army done, so you kind of have one big project you're working on. When you are doing skirmish, there are times when maybe your focus is split because you have smaller chunks of different armies that you can hop back and forth from. And sometimes that's good. But sometimes I think, I don't know, like I said, yesterday I was just definitely like, I was looking at a bunch of singular models. If you in the title card here, let's see here. So starting from the left, we've got one of those weird. He's like a Primaris aggressor that someone, because I bought him built. I bought 3 of these guys built at the Bits Guy in when I was at Nova Open in DC. He's got a Terminator head instead of the head that he's supposed to have, and he has Terminator arms. But the rest of his body is an aggressor body, and then the missile launcher things in the top. And I didn't even notice till I got home that he had those extra bits. I just thought he was an aggressor at first. Then I looked close at him. I'm like, well, that's weird. But I'm thinking, he's going to be kind of cool. He was going to be in the Friday video. He is got several layers of like dark gray airbrushed over black. And then now I've thrown a null oil wash over the top of him. And I kind of want to mess with that process for doing, black armor. But anyway, long story short is he's just kind of for funsies, and I might use him for who knows what. Then we got the Necron guy back there. He's going to be a new HQ for my Robot Overlords Grimdark Future Firefight. That guy with the red hood, that skeleton guy there, he is a model that I picked up at Gen Con, and he's a Rivenstone model. He'll be in the Rivenstone stuff when I get it from the Kickstarter eventually, but this is just more of a test. He looks better in person than this photo is it's weirdly lit. I noticed that later. And then that weird purple guy with the tentacle face, he's another, not Rivenstone, but he's Broken Anvil Miniatures. It's the same company. But he's just, again, a weird one-off that I was like, that guy's cool. I want to buy him and paint him. And then I primed him recently and did some kind of purple-based Cody stuff with him with an airbrush. But so, yeah, they're just all sitting there. And I was like, I think I'll work on the skeleton guy. And so I worked on him a good portion of yesterday afternoon. It was fun. But yeah, sometimes focusing, I definitely. I made a painting pact with AVS to paint something and post progress on Discord so that helped me be focused. Gotten some stuff done. Well, that's good. I think it helps to have one project you can sit down and work on immediately, but you should give yourself the freedom to butterfly around a bit. I like that term, butterfly around. I like that. The one hobby distraction I had recently was playing the Mass Effect trilogy for the first time ever. Yeah, I mean, video games can certainly be a distraction if you let them. But on the other hand, sometimes it's just like you're like sort of stuck in the hobby, and so you're like, I'm gonna go do something else, and video games can be fine for that too. Depends on the game. Like if it's a game that's gonna suck you in for 30 or 40 hours, that's gonna really slow your painting down. But if it's a game that you can play for an hour and then go back to painting, or go mow the lawn or whatever other kind of stuff you got to do, it's not so bad. My hobby ADD is so bad that I created a spreadsheet where I rank units by interest and impact in the table. Then I promptly didn't keep up that spreadsheet updated because ADD. Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like something, and then, yeah, no, it didn't, yeah. Let's see. You and me both on the strep. Lucky for me, my mom worked for my doc, and the non-penicillin antibiotic kept my mom stocked for my inevitable cases. Sure, that's cool. Greetings from sunny Buffalo. I've been sick for the last month, so I sympathize, trying to paint a single character just to get some momentum going, shake off some rust. That's a good idea, yeah. But I hope you get better soon. I don't think I've ever had mono. Let's see here. Building some Hearthkin right now, painting them like Wario. Fun. I got to do that sometime. I have a garage sale next spring. You still planning to move out of the studio and relocate back to the basement, or decided to keep it? Eventually, but it's everything is slowed down. Bullet hell, that's what it is. I am way behind. Oh my goodness. Last Days, that's what it's called. I knew it was Last something. Get enough garlic and cayenne in you that others don't want to be around you. You'll burn that cold out. Let's see here. The friendly local game store has a silly selection of paints, almost overwhelming. Wow. I'm looking forward to Express as well as the new YouTuber influenced speed paints from Army Painter. Oh yeah, they're adding. I think they're adding new stuff to the Army Painter, the speed paints. I mean, they're also talking about how they want to reformulate their like normal opaque line and stuff like that. But I think they're starting with speed paints. I don't think they're reformulating the speed paints. I think they're, well, I don't know for sure. Last I heard was they were going to like kind of add colors. Last Days, This Is Not a Test. I don't think This Is Not a Test was Ash. That was Joseph Joseph something. I can't think of his last name off the top of my head, but we're friends on Facebook. Joseph McCullough. No, that's the guy who did that's Frostgrave and all that stuff. Joseph McGuire. Joe McGuire. Yeah, he's the one who did This Is Not a Test, from what I understand. Extended brain exposure to mechs can cause symptoms such as wanting more complicated damage rules, painting 6mm troops, and pondering the advantages of hex-based movement. That's the other thing I like, too, about Steel Rift is there's no hexes. So. Let's see here. I like my mech games with an anime feel, solo play, campaign play. That's why I love Weasel Tech. Rough Iron. I'll have to check it out for my AdMech and Sigmarines. Yeah. Adam, I feel today you look like Walter White wearing Jesse's hat. Oh, from the Breaking Bad. Gotcha. Army Painter has a regular paint called Rough Iron 2. It's dark metallic brown. I think that's what it was. Made the stream. Currently crafting Play-Doh with the kiddos. Nice. Finally upgraded to new Airbrush. Guess I'll try it out today if I can just focus. That's always, yeah. I use the Army Painter paints with a brush. They're great pre-thinned paints. Yeah, like I said, I haven't tried the Airbrush ones, but I should definitely give that a try. Amazon is destroying my bank balance. Well, scale modelers often talk about washing injection molded sprues as well as resin. Yeah, I've heard about that, but again, like I said, I've never had a problem with plastics, like injection molded plastic. Have you used AK Interactive weathering pencils? I think I own a small little set of them. Like, I don't know, like there's 4 or 5 of them in a little thin little box. I own a set of them somewhere, but I don't know that I've ever used them. I'm hoping I'm not wasting my money on these new GW sprue cutters. I've wasted enough on low quality ones. The one really nice benefit of the new GW cutters is that they have long, like the tip is very long and skinny, which is only really important if you are cutting new GW sprues, because they've gotten some parts so close to the edge of the sprue because they're fitting so much extra stuff into the same size sprue. Like if you go back and look at GW sprues from like 15, 20 years ago, so like early 2000s, even like, you know, late 2000s, you could like fit your entire finger in between like spaces in the sprue just because there's all kinds of like, just, you know, they're just, everything was square and like had lots of space around it. And then sometime in the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, they must have got a new computer that can take all these pieces and jigsaw them all together so they get the maximum amount of space out of that same sprue of the same size, which is great. Makes total sense. Except that sometimes then the things get so close to the edge of the sprue that it's really hard with normal clippers to get in there. That is the only benefit to these new clippers that I can see. Otherwise, they're just normal clippers, and they are no way worth $50. Not even a little bit. So, yeah. Again, like I said, the only benefit is that they can get into really tight places, and that's not worth $50. Yeah, I've. Ugh. And I have a pair. Like they sent me a pair, and then the other stuff too, and the other stuff is. I don't know. What I like, I got to be honest, I really like the fact that, like after that, those things were kind of announced and the prices and stuff came out. Like Monument was like, here's an entire set of tools that costs less than just their clippers, and it comes with a cutting mat and like retractable X-Acto and the scraper and the clippers that they make and all the stuff and all that jazz. And they're like, and it's cheaper than their clippers. And I thought that was a smart move. I don't find that save a lot on Amazon to make worth anything. The only thing, the hobby stuff that I buy generally on Amazon is stuff that I can't find anywhere. A friend of mine told me about these things called oil brushers for like weathering, and it's like a little makeup dispenser kind of thing. It would be like maybe eyeshadow or no, I don't know, not eyeshadow, eyeliner. I don't know. It's like a thing, and you unscrew it, and you pull it out, and there's like a little kind of painty brushy thing at the end, and it's got oil paint kind of in it. And then you put it onto like streaks down on the side of a tank or something like that. And you let it sit for a little bit, and you take some white spirits and you kind of blend it and all that kind of jazz. Couldn't find that stuff anywhere around me, so I went on Amazon. What else did I buy? Oh, and then other weird stuff that's just stuff that you wouldn't find in a hobby store anyway. But I use it for hobby, like those wash bottles, where it's like kind of like a squishy kind of plastic bottle that's got like the thing that goes up and then goes like 90 degrees. So you need to like squirt some stuff into your wet palette, or you need to squirt something, you know, whatever. Those things I've bought on Amazon. Those tiny little mixing cups that I use, they're like for tattoo artists and stuff like that. Like those are Amazon. But yeah, as far as like regular paints and stuff like that, generally, no, I'm going to pretty much always buy those at a hobby store. Store by Us does a table fee, and that fee is added to your account for merch purposes. I think that's the smart play, honestly. That's the way to go. Too often, specialty shops are run by people who are more interested in what they are selling than making a profit. True. My local game store has plenty of tables and friendly and terrain and board games, but isn't the greatest at getting things ordered. Yeah, that's also a thing too. Tried Amazon years ago and it wouldn't work. It just kept refreshing the page instead of performing the task. Weird. Thinking about opening a board game cafe when I retire. Well, that's kind of cool. Pawn shops live because they can get stuff cheaply. Pawn shops live because they get stuff cheap locally and then sell it online. Oh, yeah, nowadays, for sure, yeah. It would be cool if hobby shops offered a 3D print service and you can pick it up at the back of the store after you walk past all the other items for sale. I mean, I've heard of some hobby shops that are doing that. You have to have a dedicated like person that's just what you pay them to do. Because it's like, here's the thing about most game stores very frequently are a single employee / owner. Sometimes they've got like an employee or two or whatever, but a lot of game stores are like one person or one person and their spouse sometimes and that kind of stuff. And when that's the case, you've got to be the person who sells the things to the people. You've got to try to work on marketing. You've got to order stuff. You've got to clean the bathrooms. Like you've got all these different responsibilities, and it's really hard to be like, hey, could you also set up the 3D printing setup so I could order stuff from you and stuff? But if you're a big enough store that has employees, and if you know there's a business model here to get a lot of these things produced, it might work. You know what I mean? But it kind of depends. I have no means of electronic payment, so cash is king for me, and I have to buy what I buy from a brick and mortar store. Gotcha. Even if it's a little bit more expensive, I always try and buy from a game store. Besides, game store is a great neutral location. I always say gaming happens there, not dinner and week prep. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of people like to play in stores just because either A, the stores have better terrain or more space, or you're going to end up playing with somebody that you maybe met online or something like that, and you don't necessarily know that person well enough to go to their house or to have them over to your house and stuff like that. It is a good place for that kind of thing. Adam makes a stream about focusing, and I listen, and I get some of that painting grind done. Works every time. There you go. Glad to help. It was all about the round and rice-filled D100. Don't ask how I know it was rice inside. I had no idea. I thought it was something else. I didn't know what, but rice, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, I have an old D100 as well from Game Science that I bought, 20 plus years ago, maybe 25. Had it for a long time. I saw you made it to Dragonfall. How was it? Any chance you can give me the skinny on those navy breachers I did for the raffle? I mean, somebody won them. I don't. Well, I mean, all the stuff got won for the raffle. I don't remember who or anything like that. I didn't really see this. I mean, I saw the stuff kind of from a distance that was painted for the raffle, but I don't really remember seeing, like, I didn't, like, it wasn't in a case. It was kind of on a table and stuff like that. And I guess I didn't look at it too much. But the convention was great. Yeah, we had a great time. I'm looking forward to next year already. So that's always good. We have a couple oversized D6s 4 inches across that we use for track gear phases and gaslands. Yeah, I have a couple of, I don't know if they're 4 inches, but I think they're maybe 3 inches D6s that I'm going to use. I use them for, like, to know what, like, turn it is for, like, you know, war cry and stuff like that. So, because you're never going to pick those up and then be like, oh shoot, didn't mean to pick that die up and use it, and now I don't know what turn it is. Like, that one's too big. You're like, well, that's not going to go in my hand very easily. Let's see here. Biscuit Hell. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Good morning. Sorry I'm late. It's okay. When I went duck hunting this beautiful Wisconsin morning, glad I didn't miss the show. Man, my dad used to go duck hunting when I was a kid. I think I went once. We did not get any ducks. I don't think we had the right lures on our lines. That's what the problem was. I do wish there were more sharp edge D6 sets available. Game Science, it's the only company that I know of that makes, like, really nice sharp edge dice. I ended up getting the printing done at an IT consultancy next to my workplace, and then brought my own, but I can't get the ladder to work. I think I missed the beginning part of that. Sorry. Let's see there. Is there an easier way to prep that terrain from Into the Dark or Shadow Vault to prevent paint on the joints? So far, I've been using poster tack in the holes and the painter's tape over the ends. I didn't use the poster tack. I probably should have, but I did use painter's tape on the ends. I don't know if it fits real tight. The other thing is that once you're done all painting it and stuff like that, you may even want to take, like, a sanding block to it. There's a lot of people that are like, oh no, mine were real tight too, so I just sanded it all down and then it works better. And I'm like, I mean, we shouldn't have to do that with this product, but I don't know. And like I said, there were other people that are like, I didn't have any problems at all. So I don't know if it, like, can plastic swell post, like, when it comes out of the mold? I don't know. It's weird. I don't know the technology of that. I know you're a fan of skirmish style games. What are your thoughts on smaller scale epic size games? Yeah, I've never been interested in really small scale like that. Like, so, like, maybe like a mech game that's 6mm. Okay, but, like, little tiny like people, no, I don't want that kind of thing personally. Just because I'm not interested in painting that 15mm scale either. For, like, say something like Flames of War, painting the tanks was fun, but I was never interested in painting the people, squads or whatever. The thing is that it's still, I mean, even when you're like, I know that, oh, what's his name, Luke from Geek Gaming Scenics has been pushing a lot of, like, oh, I want to play 40K, but I want it to fit in a fanny pack or whatever. And that's cool. I'm glad he's doing that. But for me, that's still a lot of models. Even though they're smaller, it's still too many, and I'm just not interested in that scale. I prefer 28mm scale, or slightly larger even sometimes too. I've got a huge burst of motivation recently. Well, that's cool. Finished over 50 troops in the last month. That's 50 more than in the past 2 years. Nice. My 5 parsec scenarios are helping me paint up different skirmish squads. Nice. I've taken Adam's advice to butterfly between miniatures and terrain. Working on 28mm samurai and buildings helps with motivation. Yeah, being able to hop back and forth between terrain is kind of nice. Missed the start due to the clock going back. Yeah, our clocks don't go back till next week. I don't know how we got, well, it was one of the Bush presidents, the second one. For some reason, they decided to change when daylight savings happened. And anyway, I heard they were reformulating speed paint to stop the reactivation. I hadn't heard that, but then they put that video out recently that had, like, Dana Howell and stuff like that in the thumbnail, and I haven't had a chance to watch it. Army Painter is changing the medium used in the speed paints should prevent the reactivation issues. I mean, I guess. I don't know. I think that was it was made a bigger problem by YouTubers than I think it actually was. I barely noticed it. And Lord knows that my experiences are basically everybody's experiences, right? Right? No. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like that got blown way out of proportion. And so now they're going to have to go through and reformulate it. And now people will be sitting on either the old stuff or the new stuff. Stores will be going back and forth. I mean, I know already that stores are like, so I got a bunch of the bottles of their paint that don't have the new shaky balls inside. And so what do I do with the old ones and this and that? And yeah, I don't know. Specifically saying they are reformulating all the speed paints to reduce reactivation using a new resin. I mean, I'm not going to tell them not to. I just think it's maybe, I just don't think it was as big of a problem as it got made to be by people online. And I've painted stuff with speed paints and not had that issue. But I guess it depends on how you paint. Like, once I throw down a contrast to speed paint, whatever, I don't generally then go over and paint over the top of it with some other paint and reactivate it somehow. I don't know why. Like, I dry brush over the top of it maybe. And I do go maybe and do something. I don't know. Like I said, I had a tiny little bit of reactivation on the Lizard Man guy that I painted for my video. I did the Lizard Man and the Brood Lord or whatever. That Lizard Man, I had it happen on his spines because I painted them all blue, and then I went back and painted his spines like an ivory color, and then like one of them kind of reactivated a little bit, and then all of a sudden the ivory started to turn a little bit blue, but then I just waited till that dried and then just touched it up, and yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on how people paint. I've got my set of 2 thin coats yesterday. I'm planning on using them later. Nice. I've been hearing that they've been finally getting into people's hands. I wasted like $150 on Curse City expansion and minis. I fall for GW's tricks. Well, you know. Got my sister the gift of demonettes to start her hobby journey. Those sprues are downright roomy. Yeah, the older sprues are very roomy. That's very true. I mean, these are old from the 90s, but I was looking at the Space Marine Scouts, and I'm like, there's just vast areas of nothingness in that sprue, and that set of sprues, actually, yeah. I collect so many different games and ranges of models. For me, there's a problem focusing on one game enough before jumping to another game. How do you maintain focus when building up skirmish games? For me, the biggest thing I think is just being able to like look at a model and go, I can use this for 3 different skirmish games, or I can use this for 2 different skirmish games, or whatever. And for me, that's a big benefit. So I don't mind hopping between games. You know, you play a game of this, and then maybe later on you play a different game of that, or whatever. I've never been the type that's like, this is the game that I play, and I define my personality off of it, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just never been me. I always want to play a bunch of different games. But sometimes it's hard to focus on what you're going to paint next. That's the thing I find sometimes. Army Painter has made sprue clippers for years and far cheaper. Yeah, them and Vallejo makes some, and Monument Hobbies. Actually, Monument Hobbies are the ones that I use the majority of the time these days. How important is a good air compressor for airbrushing? What would you say are the main benefits of a quality compressor? When I first started airbrushing, I had an air compressor that I got from the hardware store. It was big and red. I think it cost $60 maybe. It was the type that you would use to like use in your garage to do air compressor things. I don't know, inflate pool toys. Put the thing on there to blow all the dust off of your workbench, that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think it had like a 2-gallon tank maybe. It worked fine. I mean, it didn't have a pressure regulator, so I had to get one at the hardware store and put it on. So it was like, you know, air compressor, pressure regulator, doohickey, and then hose to my airbrush. The only downside is that it was crazy loud, and it didn't last very long. That's also interesting. It lasted for about 2 years and then started getting louder and working less, which was weird. I don't know what the problem was. But yeah, it was like, it would be completely silent because it had a 2-gallon tank. So you'd be spraying and you'd be making no noise. And you'd be spraying and spraying and spraying and spraying. And then all of a sudden, the tank would get to a certain point where it would click the thing to make it to fill up the tank again. And then it'd just be like, brrr, like really loud, and it would scare the hell out of you. So noise is a big deal. Also, like I said, it was a $60 compressor that didn't last crazy long. I then bought a good airbrush compressor. I bought a Sparmax. Sparmax? Yeah. Sparmax TC2000, I believe. I don't know. Probably, when did I buy that thing? 2013, maybe? Something like that. And it's been my workhorse ever since. So it's lasted a good long time. Now, I think it was $350. Although I think I got a discount because I bought it through Hobby Lobby back in the day when they used to give you discounts on stuff. They don't kind of do that so much anymore. And I don't go in there anymore. But at the time, that's what I bought. So yeah, I you know, the benefit to a decent air compressor is it's probably going to last longer, and also very frequently it's going to be a lot quieter too. My current compressor is a lot quieter. It doesn't have a tank particularly. You just, as you start spraying, it goes brrr, 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 kind of like that. I don't know why, but it works out pretty cool. I like it. GW isn't the only brand getting that close to the sprue these days. Yeah, I haven't worked on any new Malifaux stuff in a while, so I don't know about how they've been doing lately, but it does, I mean, I get it. You want to try to get as many pieces onto a single sprue as possible, just because it's cheaper to some degree, although I would assume it kind of probably comes out in the wash. I don't really know how they charge for making molds, but I would think that just more tooling time, they probably charge per hour maybe. I don't know if they do it. I don't know how they do it, but it's at the very least, if you're shipping 2 sprues instead of 3 for an entire kit, or even 1 sprue instead of 2 for an entire kit, because you fit all tiny little pieces and all into 1 sprue, it's just a shipping savings, you know, weight of shipping, cost of shipping, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I have to assume, but then again, like I said, it's probably the tooling time on the actual mold is probably considerably higher. So I've been looking for some inspiration to paint. Couldn't find any, so I thought I would play Gods of War. Now digging out my Skeleton Warband. I mean, sometimes, yeah, video games can do that. I've had video games that have been, like, made me really want to build terrain. On and off, I haven't played it much lately, but this game called Hunt Showdown, man, there's a bunch of stuff in there that's like, that would be a dope piece of terrain to scratch build, you know, like ruined buildings and stuff like that. There's a lot of really cool stuff in that game as far as, like, you know, terrain. And that's happened to a bunch of games. Even in, like, the Fallout games, there's been times where I've been like, that'd also be a very cool piece of, like, scratch built terrain. I can get those cutters for $35 at my local shop. Does that make it a bit better? I think I'll check out Monument. The brushes you endorse are wonderful. Well, thank you. I like the brushes a lot as well. But yeah, I honestly, the Monument clippers I really, really like. They even have like a little springy kind of thing that's like external. Like, I had this pair of clippers that I think I got from the electronics store. The first, like, side cutting clippers for sprues, I actually bought at an electronics store. And they worked fine for years, but like the springiness to them was kind of internal to the mechanism to some, and then it snapped, and then they didn't spring back anymore after that. And then I bought some Vallejo ones that the springiness thing hasn't gone away, but I did use them to cut some wire, and now they're all screwed up. That's on me. That's not Vallejo's fault. This new set from Monument, the nice thing is that the spring is like external. Like, if the handle kind of goes like this, the spring is kind of in between there, and you could just pop it out and put a new spring in there if needs be, like if it broke or something like that. I kind of like that. And they do have kind of sharp tips. They're not as getting into the nooks and crannies as much as the GW ones. I'll give the GW ones that, but again, I don't think that's worth $50. Lab wash bottles are fantastic. Yep. I didn't know what they were called at first. I had to explain it one time on my Twitch stream, and then finally someone's like, wash bottles, and I'm like, I'm gonna look those up. And I looked them up on Amazon, and boom, found them right away. Monument Hobbies clippers are very good. I agree. My local Hobbytown USA went out of business during COVID. Oh, that sucks. Local options in Las Vegas, mind you, for hobby stuff is pretty much nil now. Oh, that's no good. Are the current Pro Acryl brushes different from the old Baumwick ones, meaning different manufacturer? I believe yes. I believe that when they switched from the old Baumwick ones to the new ones, there's a new German manufacturer for the bristles, probably the handles as well. I know that Jason's been talking about basically just ordering the heads from Germany and then putting the handles and all that kind of stuff together in America, because then that way they could just order tons and tons and tons and tons of heads all at once and then put different types of, handles on them and all that kind of stuff here in the States, and it would be easier. Because like right now I know that my brushes are sold out again. I think we've gone through 3 production runs on the brushes since last year November, so it's been almost a year, but not quite. I think they came out post Black Friday, if I remember correctly. It was like late November is when they came out. And in the last year that we've run through 3 production runs. So that's awesome. But the downside is they're currently out again. So I know that they're working to try to fix that to some degree by still getting the heads made overseas, in Germany, because the paint, the bristles themselves are super, super crazy important. But then being able to get the handle parts made, or produced and stuck together and stuff here. But yeah, that's all I really know as far as that's concerned. But I believe that they're a different manufacturer than the old Baumwick ones. Tattoo cups and wash bottles are great. Lots of crossover for items between hobbying and tattooists. Sure. If you want good quality cutters, go to a tool store instead of a hobby store. Sure. Oil brushes from Ammo MIG. Yeah, I think they're from Ammo MIG. Yep, I think that's who they came from. It was Kiko, actually, from Penny Arcade that told me about him. We were talking at Gen Con. I always suggest people go look at Harbor Freight or Ace for tools like sprue clippers. You'll get them cheaper and they may be better tools, possibly. Catching the stream gave me motivation to spend a bit more time painting up my Cursed City set. Well, cool. Good to hear it. I love your videos, man. Well, thank you, Trevor. I appreciate that. Baffles me that people pay GW prices, especially for tools. For instance, you can get 3 feet of Kneaditite blue-yellow for $15, but people buy the 8-inch GW stuff for the same amount. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a situation of like, that's like GW store is all you have near you, and so that's what you get. So I get that. I've been using a set of Crescent flush cutters that once came in a set of small pair of pliers that I got from Lowe's for less than $15. One of the best set of sprue cutters I've had. Well, there you go. PCB, which stands for printed circuit board, I think. PCB flush cutters are exactly the same thing as sprue cutters. I bought mine at Radio Shack. Nice. Get some decommissioned casino dice for sharp edge. Yeah, I've seen people use those a lot too. They have a tendency to be pretty big though. If you're looking for like something that's still closer to the normal 16 millimeter size for for 6-siders, but you want sharp edges, yeah, then the casino stuff, the casino dice are considerably larger, which in certain games is fine. But if you're an orc player, that you would need a backpack of dice that size, and that would be, that's a tough. That's you fall in that backpack and really hurt yourself. I harbor my own dice superstitions, but some people are downright weird about it. Sure, I get that. Stacking tolerances, everything else is a tolerance spec. Get the tab on the large size and a slot on the small size, and it's go the other way and it slides right together. Gotcha. Daylight savings time is the dumbest tradition we no longer need. Yeah, I don't disagree. I've just started painting my first Age of Sigmar army. My wife has expressed interest in painting minis. Well, that's cool. Any suggestions on a box game with minis that we could paint together? Like a board game, you mean? I mean, there's plenty of board games out there with miniatures now, so it would kind of depend on what kind of board games you like. Or if you're talking about a box game like something from Games Workshop that is a box and has like two miniature, like two forces in it. Like if you want to go real ham, you could get the new Warcry box. That's going to have 2 different forces in it, plus also a bunch of terrain and jazz like that. Yeah, there's a lot of different options though. Spray on a matte coating to stop reactivation. I mean, sure, you can do that too if it's like if your process constantly reactivates that stuff, a matte varnish doesn't seem like a bad idea. There's a Lord of the Rings focused painting YouTuber who really likes the reactivation thing and uses it to blend. See, that's the thing too. Making your product to be basically the same as another company's product doesn't seem like it's I mean, one of the big benefits that Army Painter has over, say, Games Workshop's contrasts, even if they make them almost identical in properties, like not necessarily colors or whatever, but properties, the big benefit there is that they're cheaper. They're $4 versus nearly $8. So there's that, sure. But like, sometimes there's a benefit, I think, to not being the same as somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, there are going to be some people out there who are going to stop using your speed paint because they did have a workflow where the blending was something that they like to use. You know, and other companies don't do that because they used a different resin that doesn't do it. You know, so yeah, I don't know. Let's see here. What can you do to deal with hobby burnout? Like I said, I will switch sometimes from painting miniatures to working on terrain. Sometimes I'll play some sort of video game that maybe inspires me to make terrain or to try to make miniatures that are like the models in the game sometimes, or sometimes, I mean, another thing to do is that like go and do some yard work or some other kind of chores, because then you'll be like, well, this sucks. Then you want to go back to painting. So that also helps to kind of get you back into the groove, as it were. You can get a pair of the second best God Hands clippers for the price GW is taking out there. I bought the God Hands clippers that are like $67 or something dumb like that, because I had never heard of them before. And I was on some stream and someone was talking about these amazing clippers and how they were expensive. And I was like, well, maybe I'll make a video about that someday. So I bought them online, and then I've never used them because I'm kind of nervous I'm going to screw them up. But I should probably do that. I should make a video where it's like $67 clippers, $50 clippers versus like the cheapest clippers I can find. And I don't know. I should make a video where I'm like, these are the clippers that GW doesn't want you to know about. And then there's like a picture of me like having an aneurysm. And then that would definitely hit. I'm shocked at how quiet my Harbor Freight airbrush compressor is. Well, see, like I said, the compressor that I got from the hardware store is not an airbrush compressor. It was like a pancake compressor. Is that a word? That sounds like a word, right? It was one of those, and it was like $60, and it was for, like I said, like inflating your tires and stuff like that. And but it worked fine, as I just had to get a pressure regulator thing so I could turn it down to like 20 psi, and that was fine. But like I said, it was very loud, and also it eventually died. But at the time when I bought that, we didn't have a Harbor Freight, and then we did for a while, and now it has closed since the pandemic. I don't understand how that happened, but whatever. But I've heard that they sell an airbrush compressor at Harbor Freight, but I've never tried one. But I think quiet is like one of the most important things for an airbrush compressor, at least in my opinion. But I don't like loud noises, so. California Tools makes a Cat 6 compressor that is quiet and can be used for things other than airbrush. Like Cat 6, like Ethernet cable? I'm not sure what it's interesting. Happy Sunday from Glasgow. On the topic of quiet airbrush setups, I've used cleaned out bicycle inner tubes as a reservoir. Wearable and useful for living in a flat where a compressor is not an option. I've heard of using stuff like that before, but yeah, I had no idea. It's the beauty of my friendly local game store. They have a big selection of GW stuff, half the store, but then the other half is enough to make your head spin. I get sidetracked every time I go in there. It's nice when like a store that sells miniature stuff sells something other than just GW. I appreciate that, but it is not always easy to find. Playing Halo Combat Evolved got me fired up to paint my Space Station Zero terrain. Nice. If you want really quiet, go oil lubed compressor from Silent Air. Been using a super silent 20A for close to a decade. 100% lives up to its name. Nice. I attended a lecture at a narrow gauge con and they mentioned video games as terrain inspiration. Red Dead Redemption? Sure, I could see that. I used to use a spare tire to power my first airbrush circa 83 to 84. There was an adapter you could get, had 30 minutes of pumping the tire if I wanted to airbrush. I mean, you know, that's quiet for sure. Have you heard of a 3x3 game plan? You pick 3 games and commit to playing them at least 3 times each in a month, quarter, whatever framework works for you. Board gamers do that. Huh. I hadn't heard of that, no. Pro tip. Electronic stores are godlike for tools if you need barrels for drills and plastic, and look up PCB drill bits. They're designed for similar materials and minis and are relatively expensive. Yeah, the first sprue clippers that I ever bought, they were called side cutters, I think, and I bought them at an electronics store. You know, it sells like capacitors and resistors and crap like that. It was a local, like, friendly local electronics store. It wasn't like a Radio Shack or anything like that. I don't think, is Radio Shack's not in business anymore, are they? I don't know. I just use my hobby knife to cut things off the sprue. Am I a bad man? No. It's just that sometimes when you're like using the hobby knife, you can like, you know, and then maybe you like go too far and then you put a nick in the thing next to it, which you might not have wanted to. You get a bit more control with the clippers, usually. Oh dear. Let's see here. There we go. PC drill bits, hobby knife. If I used a hobby knife to cut pieces off the sprue, the $100 copay for an ER visit would not save me money. Good point. There's that too. Yeah. After you've played 3 times each, you can introduce other games or stick with what you're playing, and in that quarter, you can build paint minis needed for the games you played next quarter. Huh. Eventually, you will cut some parts from the sprues, breaking them to your frustration. They cannot be easily repaired or replaced, and break down and buy some cutters. I think, like I said, the cutters give you a bit more control. So, yeah. Got my print copy of Space Station Zero last week, and I'm looking forward to digging into making some crew lists. Nice. It's good to hear. Blood for the Blood God, indeed. Let's see here. I've never had a hobby knife cut that super glue wouldn't fix, but I have those rough, calloused working hands. Sure. Sometimes you just don't care about finding or making the cheap or homemade alternatives. Some value the time saved more. Yeah, I was just talking to somebody recently on Friday. Actually, I was over at a friend's house, my wife and I, and my wife is a knitter, and one of the friends there is also big into knitting, and they were talking about people on, there's a big website for knitters called Ravelry, and there was like a discussion on one of the Ravelry sections, and it was people just showing off all the different scissors that they own, and like how they have them, like they have like a rack on the wall that's just got, you know, 24 different types of scissors and this kind of stuff and everything like that. And I'm just like listening to them talk about these different things, and I'm like, that just sounds like, you know, this hobby to some degree. You know, like how many different types of X-Acto blades do you have? How many different types of brushes do you have? You know, all kinds of stuff like that. Same stuff, just different material, you know. I think there's a German brush company that also makes the Da Vinci brushes that also have a new line. Someone explained to me they're doing something fancy with the metal thingy, the ferrule or ferrule. I don't know if it's pronounced ferrule or ferrule. I should check that out. Have you seen Sam's new video? That model looks like a Frank Frazetta painting come to life. I've seen the thumbnail. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch the video yet. It's like an hour. I'm like, yeah, it's. I'm glad it's doing well for him. So off topic, but is daylight savings time ending today in the U.S.? No, it's November 6th, so that's next week. Yeah, we don't. I thought it was this morning because normally it happens on Saturday night going into Sunday. So when I woke up this morning, like that's the thing. I know that because I use my phone as my alarm clock. I knew that I would. I'm looking at the phone. I'm like, what time actually is it? Like the phone has updated, I assume, but did it update or did it not? Did I miss daylight savings? So then I went into Google. I'm like, when's the daylight savings? And it's like the 6th. I was like, oh, okay. So that'll happen next week. Don't worry about it. So we won't have to worry about it here for the Every Other Sunday show, except for the folks that live overseas who their daylight savings already switched. And so I apologize for that. Keep my saw in a desk drawer. There you go. It's probably a good idea. Even with daylight savings time, the dark at 4:30 in the afternoon in January feels a bit silly, but I'd feel sillier if it was at 3:30 as well. Sure. Ninjon has a good time with his tool video, and I had no idea what the prices were. Oh yeah, it's crazy expensive. Like when they sent me the tools, I was like, oh, they're making new tools. Okay. And then on the sheet that came in the box, they also had like the prices on the like little invoicey thing. And I was like, these clippers were $50. And then I opened them up and I'm like, nah, no, I don't think so. If you used clickbait titles like that, maybe your videos wouldn't be 10 out of 10. I guess that's the cross I'm going to have to bear. Is a hood setup necessary for airbrushing for minis? No. But two things. If you don't have a little hood thing that sucks up the paint particulate and whatnot, well, even if you do have a hood thing, you always want to wear some sort of respirator. You can get a relatively inexpensive respirator that has like 2 filters in the side and it's got a rubber thing and it straps to go behind your head. That's really quite important because the thing you don't want is a bunch of acrylic paint particles floating around in your lungs. It's not the fumes or anything like that because you're using an air compressor that's just compressing the air that's already in the room. So it's not that at all. It is, you don't want those paint particles in your lungs. Now, could you use like a N95 mask and something like that? Probably. You could probably do that too, for sure. But I just bought one of those like, rubbery ones with the things on the filter. And you can change the filters out if you need to or whatever, that kind of thing. The reason that you would want a hood potentially is if you don't want paint dust to settle all over in the room in which you are airbrushing. Now, if you don't mind dusting, if you don't mind every month or two just going around with a damp cloth and just wiping off all the surfaces, then that's fine. Like my little tiny Harry Potter room underneath the basement stairs where I was airbrushing, I just literally recently, back in the summer, I think? Back in the summer is when I finally got a hood. And the thing is I don't have it ventilated outside. Like the thing that I'm working on for my 3D printer, that is ventilated outside. The hood that I have is not ventilated outside because I'm not concerned about getting fumes outside. I'm just concerned about trying to trap the particulate that's floating around when you're spraying a model. I've seen plenty of people who just use like one of those filters you put in your furnace, and you get one of those and a box fan and put it in a box and kind of tape it all together, and that works just fine too. The benefit to the one that I've got is, well, technically it can be folded up and then you could take it on the road. I don't know why I would ever do that, but I guess. Also has LED lights in it, which is sort of nice too because it's brighter than for people to see. But yeah, it's loud. That's the downside. But like I said, it's not vented outside. It's just trying to trap it all in that kind of filter that it comes with, so I don't have to dust the room so frequently. So like if you decided I'm going to start airbrushing in my living room and you didn't want to get paint dust on a lot of stuff, one of those little hood things would be a good idea, and then it would trap that stuff for you. I just bought a complete airbrush kit that came with a compressor and it's been fine. Sure. I used to use a car tire for air years ago when I painted t-shirts with an airbrush. Nice. The bike tire tube also has the bonus of being able to fill with a regular old bicycle air pump. Sure, that makes sense too. Let's see here. The Cat 6 is the model number of the compressor. Got it. I see. Or Cat 6S. The compressor I'll use can be used for inflating tires, powering nail guns, and so on. But will it store away in another basement room and just run the air hose? What? See, yeah, if you can put it in a different room and then just have a long hose that goes into your hobby room, then it's quieter in that situation, at least to some degree. I built a set of terrain based on Borderlands. Yeah, sure. That'd be good for terrain too. Yeah. Bought a small pancake style compressor from Harbor Freight. It's loud, but I built a noise muffling cabinet to keep it in. It's a good idea. Added a pressure regulator and a moisture trap. It had a regulator, so it's twice regulated. Nice. Yeah, and moisture trap is good too, definitely. Currently playing Death Stranding, giving me some ideas for greener post-apocalyptic terrain, ruined cars, and almost completely covered in plants, for example. Completely covered in plants is the hard part for me with terrain. Like that's like lots of vines and stuff like that. I find that hard to simulate in some situations. Added an extra tank, portable air tank. Now it will fill it up and run a lot longer between the compressors running. Nice. I really only get one game night a week, and only one game is played in that session, usually Gaslands, sometimes Battletech, and sometimes Risk. Trying to coax my group into some other games, sure. I have several different flush cutters, but I can recall using just cheap nail clippers at one point to snip parts, and that worked pretty well. I mean, if you have the room to cut like kind of away from the piece and then have a little, and then be able to maybe shave it off once it's away from the sprue, that's not a bad idea. But like I was saying earlier, like GW specifically is getting things that are so close to the edge of the sprue so they can fit more things into the overall framework of the sprue. It's difficult to use like a nail clippers in those situations. How do you keep paints from going bad over time? Like, what can I do to revitalize old paints? Sometimes like acrylic thinner can help, but it depends on the paint. And it depends on how dry it is. Like if it is like cracked dry, there's not much you can do about that. But if it's just gotten kind of goopy, adding some airbrush thinner instead of water can help. It is best to go a little bit, shake it a bunch, see how it goes a little bit. If you add too much, you can't get it back out again. So you want to take some baby steps as opposed to going, well, let's just dump a bunch in there, because then, yeah, that's no good. Using the flex tip on a Dremel and a fine tip cutter blade. There you go. I may have overspent on cutters, but those Monument Uncle Adam synthetic brushes made me realize I don't need sable-haired fancy brushes. I mean, you know, there are people that love like natural hair brushes, people that like, I love synthetic brushes, but I also don't try to like freehand stuff. I think if I got really into freehand painting, like a lot of like, you know, painting actual like, I don't know, designs on the side of a tank or you know, or whatever, putting a cool diorama, or not a diorama, like a cool, you know, painting on the side of my Imperial Knight or whatever, or trying to paint, you know, hand paint emblems on people's shoulder pads and stuff like that, then I would probably be a little bit more interested personally in natural hair brushes. But for me, synthetics do the job. And I'll be honest, like I said, the Uncle Adam's favorite brushes, I opened a pack of them when I got them late November last year. They have been my daily drivers for almost a year now. They're the only brushes I pretty much use, unless I'm going to do some dry brushing. Then I use like makeup brushes and stuff. But for normal brushing, the 00, the 2, and the 4, I use those all the time. And I've been cleaning them, been using, you know, the brush soap. They're still in great condition. It's like a year later, you know, and I paint a decent amount. There are plenty of folks out there who paint more than I do, but I paint a pretty decent amount, and they've worked really well. So I have I just read that. It used to be the weekend before the holiday weekend, and now it's the weekend after the holiday weekend. I think they don't want to make it holiday weekend because that just means you'd be able to stay in the bar for an extra hour. And I think that some bars would be like, hey, cool, more money. But other bars would be like, oh, this is apocalypse. You know what I mean? And then, of course, there's just an hour drunker trying to get home. So that's also a problem as well. So, yeah, no, I could see that. I could see there being a big, weird issue with doing it on a Halloween weekend, at least in the States. Or maybe just in Wisconsin. I don't know. Let's see here. Oops, everything scrolled again. Son of a. For more than a decade, I used the Tamiya, or is it Tamiya? Plastic modeler side cutter imported from Japan to Canada. It cost me $25. It's still the most precise cutter and sharpest blade. Best cutter ever. Nice. No farmer I've ever met likes daylight savings. Huh. I don't think I've talked to a farmer or known that I've talked to a farmer for quite some time. N95 masks will stop most bacteria and some viruses, and acrylic paint particles are way bigger than that. So if that's what you have, you're good. Yeah, I was kind of thinking so. I was like, yeah, it should, but I'm not a scientist. But I would figure, yeah, if N95 will stop a virus or whatever, it should stop paint particles, I would hope. The cheap spray booths on Amazon do a great job of capturing all the spray dust. Yeah, I don't know if it was cheap. It was like $100, but it's nice. And that's the one I got one of those from Amazon. I remember when I first got into the hobby, like tabletop spray booths for $400. I remember seeing one and going, well, that's really cool, but holy crap. And yeah, and they've obviously come way down in price. Probably technically not as big as they used to be. Would a cardboard box work for airbrushing? I don't want my PC full of paint powder. Yeah, I mean, honestly, to some degree it would, especially if you were able to put like a little fan in it and then blow the air into. I think it was Sam. He used to have a box and he put a hole in it, or like a fan or something like that, and he basically blew it out through a hose, which he blew, I think, into a waste paper basket full of like crumpled up paper towel. So the idea was that the paint particles would go down and just get stuck to the paper towel or something. I don't know. It was like a homebrew kind of airbrushy thing. So there's all kinds of options out there, whether you want to try to build something yourself. I'm absolutely sure there are videos out there that are like, hey, this is how you make your own painting booth or whatever, that kind of stuff. But again, like I said, for probably about $100, it used to be like $100. I think now they're maybe like 120 with the built-in LED lights. You can also get one of them on Amazon, which this is the one I like. It works nice. Used one in a 9x16 dorm room for several years. No fallout at all. Washed the filter a couple of times and replaced it once. I think mine came with 2 filters. I hadn't thought about trying to wash it. It's not a bad idea. 10 gigabits of air. Nice. I loathe Tamiya paints for brushwork, but they are excellent for airbrushing. I don't know that I've ever used any of their paints. My wife bought me a hood with lights for my birthday. It works great right on my painting desk. It's nice being able to airbrush at any time while painting on my desk. Yeah, that is a big benefit, I think. Tons of studies showing billions in lost productivity work due entirely to changing the clocks twice a year. It's annoying. Billions of dollars in productivity because of changing the clocks? I mean, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Ball bearings work really well. To mix your paint, cheap option is to cut some sprues up and add to the paint. I mean, it's an option. I don't know if it's a good option. Because the plastic's going to be so light, you're not going to have much mass. So while you're shaking it, it's not going to be moving around as much as, say, like stainless steel little balls or like glass or stuff like that. I mean, there's plenty of options out there, but I mean, it'll work better than nothing. But yeah. People talking about dremeling. Rosemary & Co. makes some great synthetics. I bought some Rosemary & Co. brushes because I saw somebody else talking about them. This was years ago, pre-pandemic. I bought like 3 or 4 of their brushes, and I think they were natural hair. And I'm like, well, I should probably try them out, and I never have because again, I own some natural hair brushes from Monument. I own some from Rosemary and Co. I think I might even own, back when GW used to sell what they used to refer to as their artificer brushes, which were like $28 brushes. I bought like one once, but then I'm like, I don't want to use a $28 brush because I'm going to break it. Like that's just always been the way that it's in my head that it's worked. But I did not know they made synthetics or at Rosemary & Co. That's interesting. That totally sounds like Sam. I mean, it works. Like if you've got, like I've seen people online that use like a cardboard box, or they'll just use cardboard and then cut it to the size they want so it fits over the filter thing from, you go to the hardware store to buy a filter for your furnace. I don't know if everybody, our furnace filters, well, I mean, there's parts of the country, at least, or in the world, I'm assuming, where you obviously don't have a forced air furnace in your house. You have like one of those that goes on the wall or something like that. But in places where it gets colder, generally, there is a forced air furnace like in the basement or someplace. And it's also if you have all, what do you call it, central air too. But every 3 months, there's this filter that you're supposed to replace, and you get them at the hardware store, and they're about, well, let's see. The one that I buy is, I think, 16 by 25 by 1 inch thick. Because they all have they're coming all kinds of different sizes. So you could get whatever size you kind of need to some degree, and then just build yourself like a box that is roughly that same size. So that thing's at the back, the open holes towards you, and then you put a box fan behind it or do something. So it's basically sucking air through. Like I can see it when I'm spraying, especially when I'm cleaning my airbrush. When I clean my airbrush, I put airbrush cleaner stuff into it. I buy this Iowata stuff. Spray that in, or not spray it, dribble it into the cup. And then I take an old bottle of the stuff that's empty, and I just spray my brush into that old bottle. And then you see like it kind of comes out and it's like a mist. And if I do it with the fan on and the thing, I can just see it go up and go like right into the filter, Whereas before, it used to just sort of kind of get all over the place, and I was like not trying to get it in my lungs. I was wearing a respirator, but still I was nervous about it. So I would, try to wave it away or so. It's a whole thing. But now with the hood thing, it works real nice. So got to be sure to get Halloween candy, not for the trick-or-treaters, but for me. Yeah, I'll be down in the basement streaming, so we're not going to do any trick-or-treating stuff tomorrow. We're going to just keep all the lights off so the kids don't come and bang on the door. I use a stove hood with a filter from the hardware store. Oh, that's pretty cool. I got one of those airbrush booths. Nice, but the fans are too loud for me. Yeah, the fan is kind of loud. I'm not going to lie. Built my spray hood out of a clear plastic Sterilite container. Oh, like a Rubbermaid kind of. Yeah, okay. Kind of turn it on its side, I'm assuming. A bathroom exhaust fan, extension cord, and a dryer flex hose. Vents into a small piece of crawl space we have. Yeah. Airbrush trides from Army Painter really help me focus. Would you suggest using them for the dominant color for the model? May help with skin tones too. I like them a ton, which is why I was really glad to kind of work, like I said, with the folks from Army Painter on that video. I really, like, honestly, it's the only opaque colors that I use in my airbrush room these days. The only other opaque, well, okay, so I use them for opaques, and then now these days, if I need to do like a transparent color, I just use speed paints because they're already in a dropper bottle, which makes it really easy to get into the airbrush. There's a lot of different tones. I have a tendency to stay within triads because I'm basic, let's say that. But that's the whole point of those things, The whole idea is like if you want to have a red colored miniature, a Blood Angel or whatever, well, you start with the base red, and then you decide to put on some mid red. And if you want to get real fancy, you go to the high. Or maybe you start at the mid, and then you go to the high, or whatever. If I was to switch from one red to a different red, or whatever, that's when you get that hue shift. And like I said, every once in a while, you want that. When I did my Death Guard guys from 8th edition starter box set, I primed them all like olive drab, and then I highlighted them like a zenithal with a light tan. So going from a warm color to a cool color like that is really kind of weird looking, but they're Death Guards, so they should look weird and almost a little unsettling. I remember then I think I used a Thonian camo shade wash over the entire thing, so then that kind of even got weirder, having a dark green wash over tan that then fades down into green and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, all that kind of stuff is interesting to use, but for me, with the triads, I have a tendency to stick within the triad and go, this is the color I want to go, and then go from there. But again, like I said, I'm kind of basic. You know, there are plenty of people out there who are like, I don't ever shoot a non-mixed color through my airbrush because I want a very specific shade, and that's cool too. But those people are pros, and I'm trying to get guys on the table. So made my own airbrush hood with a box, bathroom fan, and a furnace filter. Yeah, yeah. Army painter balls are fairly inexpensive. Yeah, I think I got 100 of them. They're 5.5 millimeter stainless steel. 100 of them for $8 maybe from my local hobby store. Generally, if your hobby store has that rack that has all of the Army painter tools on it, then they should probably have the mixing balls on that rack, I think. Oh dear. Buy paint mixing balls from a reputable company. I bought some stainless steel ones, and now I have some rusty Citadel paints. Army painter steel balls don't rust, but eBay/Amazon cheapos do. I haven't noticed rust on any of my Army painter ones, but I've never tried any of the eBay or Amazon ones. If you want steel ball bearings and need a high quality guarantee, look up industrial supply stores. I find that my natural hair brushes work best for my watercolor painting and not on my miniatures. Synthetic has given me better results, frankly. I prefer them, but I know it's not for everybody. I made a video about, you know, synthetic versus natural hair brushes and stuff. So just wanted to say that after our talk about brushing airbrush paints, I can now confirm that they do indeed work, and some of the metals work wonderful as well. I mean, I kind of assumed they worked, but I haven't had a chance to try them out yet, you know, to kind of see, like, because for me with airbrush paints, the only airbrush paint that I really, really absolutely love using with a brush currently that I know of are a couple, like 3 different colors from Vallejo's Model Metallic Air: silver, chrome, and gunmetal. For some reason, their aluminum color I don't like. There's something about it. But I definitely don't use their golds and stuff like that. If I'm going to use gold, I'm going to use Monument Hobbies and all that jazz, Pro Acryl. But those, yeah, like I've said for years, those airbrush paints from Model Metallic Air silver, just like it's one coat done, no brush marks. It's awesome. I want to try out some of the Army Painter ones too to see if I get that same kind of effect or not. $25 by $20 by 5 are not cheap. Yeah, that's a thick honkin' filter. Like the filter that came with my airbrush hood is maybe a 1/2 inch, I think. Really enjoying Space Station Zero. Well, thank you. I only get to play Kill Team or Warcry with friends on a very infrequent basis. Having a solo skirmish game has given me the impetus to get teams painted. Yeah, I think that, like, Vince and I think are on the same page where we are predominantly looking at most of the games going forward being solo and skirmish to start, and then also having the ability to play against your friends, a versus mode, if you will. That's going to be pretty standard. Just because it kind of differentiates us a little bit, you know, from other people in the industry. There are other companies doing solo and skirmish games for sure. Lord knows. I mean, the 5 parsecs, 5 leagues, 5 etc. And others. There's other people doing it as well, but we're just like, I think we want to definitely try to focus on that, and I think it's going to work well. But like I said, we're also not going to say, oh, you can't play versus. We want to still have that in there. I buy hematite beads to use for paint mixing beads, almost as heavy as steel. They never rust. They seem to work fine. Nice. I use lava rock 8mm beads for my paint bottle. They harness the power of a volcano in every shake. That sounds scary. Hope it doesn't overheat your paint. I think I'll pick up a couple of those Army Painter airbrush paints today, along with some thinner. Got a couple Gundam artifact kits to paint and detail weighting. Nice. Thanks again for the live stream chat, Uncle, or to Tabletop Minions. Never fails to stoke my enthusiasm for the hobby. And thanks to the great people in the chat. Happy hobbying, everyone. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've purchased 2 blind boxes, the Space Marine Heroes 2022 so far, and both were the Sergeant. I feel both lucky and unlucky as I already have that guy from Space Marine Heroes. Yeah. I mean, you could put him on maybe eBay if you wanted to. Yeah, absolutely. Well, folks, it's 11 here in my neck of the woods. I know that we've got, time zones and now daylight savings and all that jazz. But I want to thank everybody for coming by and hanging out. I hope that maybe I was able to help with some focus. Hopefully my focus issues will also, maybe be assuaged, if that's a word. But yeah, so tomorrow is Halloween. And so I'll be streaming on Twitch. Like I said, I probably won't be wearing a costume. I might try to find some spooky graphics to put around the edge of the screen, but that's about as far as I'm going to go. I might eat candy. You could eat candy too, but I can't give you any candy because that's not how streaming works. But so hopefully we'll see you there tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. Again, we'll have to figure out, or you may have to figure out what that means in your neck of the woods right now. But yeah, otherwise, I'll see you folks again soon. And I'll have daylight savings next week, but we won't have a stream next week for this because it's this week and it's every other Sunday. And so hopefully we'll get it all figured out. We only got to do this twice a year, right? Sure. That sounds great. Have yourselves a good day. Try to focus if possible, or whatever, or do something else to try to get your motivation going. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.